So a very good afternoon to everyone. Welcome to INSPIRUS, Women Roundtable hosted by XLRI Jamshedpur. In the journey of transformation, catering to the needs of aspiring business leaders, industry, and the nation is an essential guiding philosophy. XLRI strives to offer education that not just leads to a degree, but inspires future business leaders to respond to the unmet needs of the society. Keeping true to its vision of continuous development, we at XLRI welcome you to INSPIRUS, Success Stories of Women in Business. INSPIRUS has been curated by the students of our flagship PGDM GM program of XLRI Jamshedpur. In India, 20.37% of women are MSME owners, which accounts for 23.3% of our labor force. They are considered to be the backbone of the economy. According to McKinsey Global, India can potentially add $700 billion to the global GDP by increasing women's participation in the labor force. Women-led businesses provide a great impetus to the economy. India has 432 million working-age women and 13.5 to 15.7 million women-owned businesses that provide direct employment to 22 to 27 million people. Despite constantly changing times, female entrepreneurs today experience unique challenges. These challenges often range from lack of equal opportunities professionally to overcoming social taboos professionally. We at XLRI would like to celebrate the success stories of these heroes together and share not only their journey, but inspire young girls who look up to them. Our panelists today are women who are from various industrial backgrounds and who have made a significant mark in their respective fields. First up, we have amongst us an entrepreneur who is an established human resource professional, author, and coach. She has over 26 years of experience working across the globe, including roles in Asia, North America, and Europe through her stints at City Royal Bank of Scotland and P&G. Prior to her entrepreneurial journey, she donned the roles of HR head, MD, and CHRO for organizations such as RBS and Citi South Asia. She was also head of HR for EMEA Bank based in London and talent lead in New York. She's now the founder and CEO of VAs, a global platform focusing on engaging, enabling, and employing women in the industry, a platform that has gained over 1 lakh plus women and over 100 industry clients engaged for various products and services. I'm talking about none other than Ms. Anuranjita Kumar. Her list of achievements include being recognized and featured in the Economic Times Women Ahead list of 2018, being recognized in 2019 for an astute role model for India Inc. by the leading Asian D&I organization, House of Rose Professional, as a visionary diversity and an inclusion leader. She has also been recognized as one of the most powerful women leaders by Fortune in 2013 and top 100 HR professionals by the World HRD Congress in 2015. Anuranjita ma'am is a gifted author. Her bestseller, Can I Have It All, addressed the opportunities of being a woman in today's life and the need to open oneself to accepting these privileges. Anu ma'am is also a philanthropist who is an active volunteer in guiding underprivileged children and mentoring several upcoming startups. Her presence is also a special day for us today as she's part of our widespread alum community, having completed her management graduation in human resources from XLRI. She attended Welham's Girls' School and is gold medalist and topper in industrial psychology from Delhi University. Welcome to the panel, ma'am.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. Thank you, Urvashi.
Divya, you are on mute.
Hello, everyone. My name is Divya, and I'll be taking up from here. So next up, we have Ms. Anuradha Khaitan. She's the founder and MD of Manya Education, the largest partner of the Princeton Review, which offers an end-to-end ecosystem for all higher education requirements of students. Named after one of the 1008 avatars of Goddess Saraswati, Manya Education holds an exceptional track record of guiding more than 3 lakh students since its inception in 2002. With an ever-growing network of 45 plus centers across India and omni-channel presence, having delivery across mobile, web, and classroom, Manya Education has established itself as one of the leading organizations in IB tutoring. Test preparation like SAT, GMAT, MAT, GRE, IELTS, etc., profile building and admissions to world's top universities. She is also the co-founder of Trivium, which offers services in assessment and content development, e-tutoring, hand grading to education companies globally. Ms. Aradhana is a Kamal Nayan Bajaj Fellow of the Aspen Ananta Institute, a member of EVO and YPU. She resides in Delhi with her husband and 2 sons, a spiritual seeker and a sustainable champion. She is constantly learning and looking for ways and means to better the world. Welcome, ma'am. Next, we have amongst us a MasterChef Season 2 winner who is a prolific chef, global television personality, and a social worker with an alluring charm. None other than Chef Shipra Khanna. Besides being a gifted food artist and an engaging speaker, Shipra is a voracious traveler and an explorer. An alumnus of the prestigious Loreto Convent and St. Beats, the aroma of Shipra Khanna's unique creations on the global stage comes from her traveling over 50 countries across the globe, exudes her passion for exploring the allure of the palate and juggling with multiple cuisines spanned across nations, working with Michelin to local chefs, understanding cuisines, and anchoring distinguished shows across the globe, and being the ambassador of MasterChef Travel. She is the recipient of the coveted honor of SARC as the women chef taking tastes beyond borders in Nepal. Her entrepreneurial ventures have encompassed various social missions on malnutrition and gender equality, and her stature has extended generous service with empathy and humility. Ms. Shipra has authored the deeply guarded secrets of her delicacies in her 8 cookbooks. Her book, Sinfully Yours, got her the World Government Award. She has also been awarded by Mahatma Gandhi Leadership Award to take Indian cuisine across the globe at the British Parliament, London by the NRI Society of London, and has taught culinary art at Le Cordon Bleu in Paris and China. Her latest show, Star Chef, has become an online sensation where she taught cooking to Bollywood superstar under lockdown. She has started her own fundraiser called Cooking for India with Care India and Care Australia during COVID-19 to help collect funds for COVID relief for Indian frontline workers and people in need of help, and in her own state, Himachal Pradesh, for COVID relief during pandemic 2021. Welcome, ma'am.
Next,
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited about this and sharing everything possibly that I can to inspire everyone.
welcome, ma'am. Welcome once again.
Thank you.
Next, we have someone who is the lead for Global Capability Center segment nationally and also oversees the services KPMG India provides to this segment. She's an engineer in CA by education qualification. I'm talking about none other than Ms. Shalini Pillai. Ms. Pillai is the office managing partner, KPMG Bangalore, and is currently responsible for representing the firm in the market, especially for the large strategic client accounts. She has been a part of the India leadership team for several years and is a member of the board as well. Ms. Shalini led HR function for the firm in India. Over a career in management consulting spanning close to 30 years, Ms. Shalini has been involved in delivering a full range of business advisory and financial consulting services to clients across a wide range of industries. She has worked with many large and medium-sized organizations, helping them define and realize their strategic objectives and growth targets. Ms. Shalini leads GCC, which is Global Capability Centers nationally, and oversees the services KPMG provides to this segment. GCC sets up across the following areas, which is advising global organization on their sourcing strategy to defining the operational model, helping establish and optimize their GBS, enabling technology interventions, addressing new emerging dimensions of risk, understanding the changing regulatory landscape and implications for the model. Shalini ma'am represents the firm in all external industry forums focused on research towards defining the future roadmap for global service delivery models. Welcome to the panel, ma'am.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Pleasure to be here today and looking forward to a nice interactive conversation. Thank you.
Welcome, ma'am. On behalf of XLRI and the Student Placement Committee, I, Urvashi Kaul, will be your host for the event and Divya shall be the co-host. The event will be facilitated by Professor Tina Stephen. Professor Stephen is a faculty of law at XLRI Jamshedpur and has work experience both in India and abroad. Professor Tina specializes in and holds a PhD in labor law. Her areas of expertise include teaching, consulting, and corporate training in various subjects like contract labor laws, industrial relation laws, labor's laws for women, etc. She's also conducted training programs for several companies, including Tata Steel, Cipla, Larsen & Toubro Limited, and Asian Paints. Further, she's a proficient published writer whose writings have appeared in both national as well as international journals. We welcome Professor Tina and request her to take the event forward.
Thank you so much, Urvashi. A very good afternoon to all of you, and a very warm welcome to all the panelists who are with us today. It is indeed a privilege to be a part of this esteemed panel. Of course, this is a great opportunity for all of us to discuss this very important topic, which is also very close to my heart and is very special to all women who go out to work. In the area of women in workplace, we know that there's a lot of discussion. There's a lot of academic writing and a lot of research that has gone into this area, into this topic. But do we still understand the real practical problems that women face in the workplace? And that is where this panel becomes very important, because we want all the panelists to share how they have grown in the workplaces, what challenges they have faced, what stress they have endured, which is a very important part of women being in the workplace. Recently, certain books like In the Noise, My Life in Full, or Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In, these are the books which have made these topics a coffee table talk. We are talking more about it, the real-time challenges, the day-to-day issues that we face. So that's something that has brought this discussion to the fore, not just from a conference perspective or not just from an academic perspective, research perspective, but a real problem. And that is what we are trying to figure out here also with this panel, through your life, through your experiences, that how far we are in India as far as women in the labor force is concerned. So without much delay, I will like to begin with Anuranjita. Hi, Anuranjita, thank you so much for agreeing to be on the panel. We just want to quickly have a sneak peek into your journey and what kind of challenges you have faced and what has been your solution at different steps. So we'll have around 8 to 10 minutes with you for a quick intro with you, Anu. You may go ahead.
Yeah, well, it's great to be here amongst friends, and it's great to see Shalini here, who's been a great ally for me for a while, and lovely to meet Aradhana and Shipra. So for me, I worked for 26 years, and after Excel, I joined PNG. So here is the funny story. So I joined PNG, and my to-be husband then, who's also an XLR, a year senior to me, joined Unilever, right? So we were this odd couple where we constantly fought ki bhaiya ghar pe surf aerial use kare ya Excel use kare, Lux use kare ya Conclave use kare. And we had no clue on campus ki, there was this tension between the two companies, but there is this simple, very subtle policy. And PNG told me, oh, we'll help your husband find a job. And Levers was like, couldn't care. PNG is too small for us. And funnily enough, in our batch, there were like 3 such couples, right? So as things would be, and since Sandeep is not here, I can safely say we both were looking around as we were planning to get married. And since he's not here, I'll take a pot shot and say I was more employable because I moved on to work with Citibank, which lasted for 2 decades, and he continued with Unilever for 2 decades. So, and with Citi, I had no idea what I signed up with. As you get out of campus, be it a man or a woman, right now I'll be gender agnostic. You're looking for a good brand, you're looking for good money, you're looking for a livelihood, and that's life, right? So I went and joined Citi. I couldn't care. HR is anyway gender sector agnostic. And I suddenly moved into a culture which was BFSI, and BFSI with like a huge skew with more men in BFSI at that stage because retail banking was yet coming of age. And so I started my career like that in India, and then I moved to Singapore. And, as a couple, we had multiple challenges, 2 careers, 2 continents. In the process, we had 2 children also who grew up somehow. So we kind of made it work. But I think from a professional perspective, it's been a fabulous ride, and it's not been an easy ride, but it's been a great ride. I wouldn't have it any other way. And because there's so many men on this session, I would just be very inclusive of all the men out here. Very often we talk about what are the challenges women have, and there is something called equity, the path to leadership. The goal of leadership is the same, whether it's a man or a woman. The path to leadership is different for a man or a woman. And for women, yes, there are challenges like, there are biases, there are issues. You get typecasted very soon, but that doesn't mean you give up. Similarly for men, for a lot of men out here, I have to say I sympathize and empathize, because a lot of you don't even have a choice to be sitting at home like women do. I mean, they do have a choice. And whether we like it or not, I do believe that, I run a whole women platform, and one of the biggest pushes we make is use that choice wisely, right? And don't just take it easy because the society gives you the permission to take it easy. So anyway, coming back to my career, I think as I moved through the chains of starting at a junior level, mid-level to senior level, what I found was what kept me going was my own self-belief and motivation. And I also found that men have their own challenges, and the path to leadership is actually gender agnostic. We as women could sit there and saying, hey, there are these problems and all of that stuff, or we can say there are problems, but you've got to find smart ways to deal with it. So I chose the latter. And given the time is limited, I'll actually focus on one experience of mine, which was when I moved from New York to London. London was like long 10 years for me. And I landed myself somehow, don't ask me how, in corporate investment banking. And that point of time, I was looking after Europe, and this is pre-financial crisis. So, the markets were bouncing and we thought we'll never see end of the world. It's a bit like, with due respect to all the techies, what is happening in the technology world right now, right? It's riding the roast. And so as bankers, we were riding the roast, and, $1 million bonuses to everything was going on. And then the financial crisis hits, right? I remember I had entered investment banking. I actually went in for an MD meeting in Canary Wharf. And the first time I walked into that room, it was 40 MDs. I was the 41st. It was, apart from me, there were 40 men, all in their 40s or 50s, wearing black and gray suit. And they were white. Okay, there were no brown people also. So investment banking, very incestuous. It's very white and it's very local, depending on where people are. So I walk in and I thought I'd walked in the wrong room, because I was like, got to be some color or some diversity in some way. And there is this little feeling of fear you have, as much as I feel that I can handle it. But when you first time walk into a room, you're younger, you see older white men, and you're like, how am I going to deal with it? Anyway, I try to, as that TED talk goes, fake it till you make it. So I kind of tried to look very confident, went and sat. And then my intro came in and I said, look, I'm so-and-so, and this is what I do, and this is what my background. And gentlemen, for now, I add color from every perspective on this table. I'm a woman, I'm brown, and I'm wearing red color, not like pouring blue, gray, and black out there. So investment banking was the peak of what you can have in terms of being a minority. And I use the word minority and not a woman, because each one of you has their own streaks. And when you get into global careers, you can have a minority fear factor play out as well. So for me, it was breaking into the den with the boys club. And they resisted and I persisted. That's what really happened. And after a point of time, I think they gave up. And I remember that the first time I went to meet the investment banking head, who used to be my boss, he just won't even look at me. He would be like, theek hai, something has happened and she landed here by mistake, but that's okay. And I kept persisting. And finally, it was all about the merit and the deals you bring and the conversations you have. And then after 6 months, it reached a point where he started talking to me about his mother-in-law. And I knew I had cracked it, because, a white American guy, M&A specialist, and one day he was sitting in office and I said, why aren't you going home, Tom? And he was like, yeah, my mother-in-law is here and it's just very painful. And I started laughing and I was like, okay, so now we're getting into the personal stuff. But the tougher part, this was the fun part. Okay, the tougher part happened when the crisis happened. And that'll be another book in the making, because nobody knows what went inside. As bankers, we were branded as bad people. We brought the, cities down. We brought London down. We brought New York down. And I was sitting there in the midst of it with massive turnover, massive layoffs, shutting down the countries. And then we became core team. We were 7 of us who were handling the business. We became a core team. And when you become the core team, there is no gender. It becomes invisible, right? But what it demanded of me as a professional, not just as a woman, was to then rise to the occasion too. And it was hard work. It was hard work because in the midst of all this stuff going on, my husband, who's suddenly decided that he had a great offer in India, wanted to move back to India. I had 2 kids, 6 and 11. And I didn't want to go because I was actually quite happy with what was going on in London. So we had this long debate and I almost quit. And then, my bosses were like, oh, we're going through this upheaval. My husband and I talked, and I have to thank him for this, because he said, you really want to do it? And I said, yeah. And he said, okay, then we'll make it work. And I was more nervous because I was a young mother, right? And so for 2 years, I did London, Delhi. I moved the kids also to India, made friends with my mother-in-law and my mother because I couldn't trust my husband completely to look after my children. But it was tough because initially I felt like, oh my God, how am I going to do it? I've never lived alone without my children. And so it wasn't so much grief of leaving my husband, but my children. But then life has a way of making things work for you. You have to take the punt. I decided, okay, the company wants me, I will stay back. They made it really easy for me in London. And one of the funny things I will tell you, someday you'll all become leaders. So I remember my leaders were talking to me about how we make this smoother for me personally. And I said, I need to travel. You need to give me travel budgets because my kids are there. So this is such a smart strategy in retrospect. So my boss turned around and said, Anu, you have an unlimited travel budget. When you want to go, how you want to go, which class you want to go, your call. It was such a brilliant strategy. How many times will I travel from London to Delhi? Once a month, max, right? The ticket will cost you 1,000, 1,500 pounds. Such a smart strategy. But mentally, I became very calm because I said, chalo, kabhi bhi ja sakte hain. And I don't have to worry about hopping onto a flight. So as a mother, turning around and saying, okay, I can do what I can do. The second thing I did was leverage technology to the hilt. I would actually, as a working mother, talk to my cook or at home and usko kya khana khilana hai bachcho ko. So I learned all of that. And bear in mind, there was no WhatsApp, right? There was only FaceTime or Skype. No, FaceTime bhi nahi tha. So I used to train my maids and stuff like that. So the reason I'm going into this level of detail is it's important, right? For men and women to understand, because a lot of men out here will have working wives. So you also have to empathize and provide them that support as much as they will go along with the choices which both you as partners will make. And for a lot of women out here, it is about rising to that occasion and taking a bet of itself. And the last bit which I will add to it is when I came back to India, finally I came back to India as heading HR for Asia. So I remember interviewing with my boss then, and Shalini, you will recall Prameet Javeri, but Prameet is a tough guy. And, and so I was interviewing and I said, so ho gaya, naukri sab ho gaya, okay, Anu, let's get started. I said, there's a small complication that when my children moved and my family moved, they moved to Delhi. And because my husband's job was based out of Delhi. So Prameet, I will do Delhi, Bombay. So he was literally interviewing me. He sat down like this. And, his body language was like, what the hell is she saying? I mean, how is this ever going to work? This is nonsense. And he's a very Bombay person, right? Like he's the kind of person, I'm making light of it, but if he has to go from South Bombay to Bandra, he probably needs a passport. But so he was very obsessed with Bombay and he was like, no, this Delhi Bombay stuff. Then he was like, this is a diversity thing. So how do I say that this is not going to work? So he looked at me and said, tumhe jo karna hai karo. But I think this is a crazy idea. Abhi tum London, Delhi kar rahe ho, ab Delhi, Bombay karo. It's okay with me. And I could see it's not okay with him, but he didn't know what to do with it. So I said, Prameet, I'm on the same time zone. We can make this work. Now, bear in mind, here is a senior leader who's never had a career woman in his life. His wife is a housewife. His sister doesn't work, doesn't have a daughter. How do you think he's going to understand what it takes to work? He's not being wicked. He's not being mean, but he doesn't know how this will work. So for 6 months, for 5.5 years, I did Delhi, Bombay every week, right? But for 6 months, he tested me to the hilt. He would call me and say, kahan ho? What is going on? And when you work with high-end bankers, they're very high touch. They want to see you and you've got to be there. And this was all pre-COVID, as you can imagine. And as I see in India, things are very rapidly coming back to, as things were pre-COVID. So my learnings or 3 key takeaways from my journey were, one, very clearly, you got to start with yourself, right? As women, for the women out there. And for the men out there, you got to empathize because the journey which she's undertaking is slightly different than what you've been used to. So just change your lens, right? I agree that, when I look at my husband, who's the CEO of another company, he doesn't have it any easier. He's got other challenges. So path to leadership is not easy, but just empathize with each other in this journey, making life easier for both of you. Second is take some bets, take some risks. We play in our comfort zone, kya hoga? Like it's a bit like when I was leaving my kids or when I was jumping into banking, I've never done any of this. The fear of failure, I find for women is higher sometimes. Men, because they don't have a choice but to be a breadwinner, the fear of failure in women is higher. I recently promoted a few women in my organization. And the first reaction I got was, I'm having a chat like you're doing a fabulous job and we're going to prepare you to be a CXO. The feedback I got was, Anu, do you think I can do it? I'm very scared. I don't know I can handle it. And this is such a constant thing that I have faced. And the last thing I would say is, broaden the network, which happen through these conversation and bring it to light. You have some fabulous leaders in Aradhana, Shipra, and Shalini, who obviously broken the glass ceiling, and I'm sure have better stories to share than I do. So I'm going to pause here. I'm sorry I've taken a little bit more longer, but back to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Anuranjita. I'm sure there are so many points that we have picked up from what you just said, and many of us can also relate to what you said. Yeah, because we have many women who have work ex before coming for this course here. Shalini, I'll come to you after Anu. What do you think has your experiences been? Because many of the challenges sometimes seem to be very similar, though they are separately. The context might be different. The way they come to us are different, but we seem to have some or the other. So we would like to hear from you also, Shalini. Yeah, please go ahead.
Sure, Professor Tina, pleasure to be here. And I've heard Anu's story before and can relate to many aspects of it. I mean, I got to know her, and I'll talk a little about my journey, but she was one of the very warm and welcoming peers in the HR fraternity, when for a brief period I stepped into that zone, and I'll talk about it. But just to, and I'll also summarize, because a bunch of what Anu said actually clearly resonates and I can relate to as much. So to give you a little bit of my background, and I'll talk about it in summary, but like you heard perhaps in the introduction, one of the things that makes for a great conversation starter is my not so common educational background, because I actually did my engineering and then did my CA, and get asked almost all the time as to why this strange combination and what made you do your CA. I'm not getting into all the details of that answer just now, but I must say way back when I graduated from BJTI in Mumbai, I actually joined Arthur Andersen. You may have read about that organization in perhaps history books now, but it used to be the world of the big five at some point. And that's the organization I chose to join. Wanted to learn the ropes of finance before I then went on to do something on my own. But of course, life had a different path charted out for me. I enjoyed working with that organization, chose to do, actually gave it a shot, appeared for Inter-CA because a bunch of people I knew then were taking the exams, cleared it, and CA kind of happened alongside my work at Andersen, which was in the consulting space. Those days we were preparing for the Accenture split or Andersen Consulting moving out. So joined the consulting team and have been in the consulting world ever since. Later this year, I actually complete 2 decades with KPMG. So a long journey completely in the consulting domain. But in that journey, and I must call out, I have had the opportunity to play a few different roles. Firstly, after many long years in consulting, I had the opportunity when I was asked by our leadership team to actually step in and run the HR function for the firm. At first, it seemed like a bizarre suggestion, but because I did not have the background in human resources, though I had done work in practical terms because of some of the solutions I led. I used to lead post-merger integration for the firm, which for many of you, as you may understand, is a lot about people integration. So it was an area I specialized in. So I actually moved on to take on this role. And with that role, actually had the opportunity to work with a team of 250 HR professionals who actually helped me understand some of the very critical elements of what the function actually is meant to look at, but brought in a very different lens and had an opportunity to actually lead and change a bunch of things of how we actually managed our people agenda and how we steered through it. That was the context in which I got to connect. And I have since then, actually, I like to say proudly, I feel part of the HR fraternity that I have stayed very much in touch with. A subject which I think is critical for anyone who wants to really understand the ropes of business to master. So did that for almost 5.5 years and then moved back into a business role. Today, I actually lead one of our largest regions in the South, and it's our fastest growing office. And I lead what we call the Global Capability Center channel, or what NASSCOM calls GCCs for the firm nationally. I sit on the board of KPMG. I've been part of the leadership for many years. So that in summary is my journey. The reason and some of the things I wanted to call out to you all, which I think is when I look at learning. So firstly, while of course, all of what Anu said is I think very, very valid, because the reason we're discussing this subject and we talk about diversity and inclusivity and the need for better balanced ratios is because we're still not quite there. We've come a long way. In 2008, when I got promoted to partnership in KPMG, I was the first woman to actually make it to the partnership. And it was actually, while it was a great milestone, it was breaking the glass ceiling, but at one level sad, right? That for a firm, it took so many years to actually promote a woman into the partnership, but that is reality. Between then and now, we've come a long way. Today, I proudly have many women colleagues with me who are part of the partnership at KPMG. So we've really made progress, but we still have a long way to go. We still have a big skew that needs to get fixed in the ratios here, and we're working hard on it. I have been used to being, if I may call it, in the minority forever. I mean, if I go back to engineering college days, the ratio of the number of women we were in our engineering college batch, very similar to if I compare it to the ratios in our partnership today. So at one level, did not really ever let that bother me. Was also, in fact, the older of two girls, so was born and brought up as the son of the house. So never really let that bother me, but I think the ecosystem we're in does remind you and does impose a bunch of biases, which I think it's so important for us to all be conscious about. In the last few years, we've heard a lot more about training around biases and how we need to constantly be aware of it. And I think that's really important for all the men in the room, for all the women in the room, because I think biases play out both ways. But I think awareness levels are much higher. We've come a long way, and I think we still have some way to go. Over a close to 30-year-long career, of course, there have been biases. In the consulting world, the number of times people would assume to say, oh, you know, she's married, she has a young child, I don't think she can be slotted on a project. Or to say that, you know, this client is really hard, a tough one to deal with, I don't think she'll be able to deal with it. These are biases. I mean, why wouldn't you just ask me if I can deal with it? Why don't you just let me make the choice? Yes, I have a young child, but how I manage that is for me to decide. You know, I don't want anyone else making that decision for me. So have there not been times like that? Of course there have been. And I'm talking about years when I don't think the awareness around these biases were as pronounced. So if I compare my early years in consulting and growing in the firm, I think we've come a very long way since. People are a lot more aware. If I speak for the environment I've been in, it's of course always been extremely meritocratic. And that's what has made me successful and actually allowed me to pick and choose the many roles that I have had an opportunity to play in this firm. But and that is an important and a very, very essential piece. But does that mean that there aren't these biases? No, they are. They still exist. They exist not just within an organization, but they exist in the markets that we service as well, right? I mean, people tend to be judgmental. People tend to form opinions. Just first impressions can make a huge difference. So sometimes it's about all of us reminding ourselves that you need to kind of be cautious of before you actually, cast a judgment on someone or create that first impression. And which is why, again, I think being very aware of those biases are extremely important. Going back to my journey, like I said, lots of learnings, lots of ups and downs, but a couple of things that I think have helped me in really good stead all through. Firstly, I must acknowledge a very, very supportive life partner. I would say similar story to Anu, because my husband of 25 years was my classmate. So we go back, we've known each other for 35 years actually, and has always known me for who I am and what I am as an individual. He's really been the wind beneath my wings, allowing me to make my decisions, choose my paths, play out those risks and rewards. And that's my first biggest support. And the reason I call that out is for all of you listening in, I think it's really important. Anu gave a lot of examples of what it takes to balance, the work life and the personal life. Very important, because I think unfortunately, and I may sound biased when I say this, but in the Indian ecosystem, like it or not, there are more pressures on women. There is an inherent expectation, whether it's getting that dinner on the table or whether it's making sure that the children are taken care of completely. There is that little extra load. Of course, I must say, having said that, I'm seeing that change. I think the beautiful silver lining that COVID brought with it is this huge realization for both genders to understand and appreciate what it takes to balance this work-life priorities. For people who've actually had to work from home, and I know many of my male colleagues who've said, oh my God, seeing it firsthand, what it takes to run a house and manage all the calls alongside, it is something else. So I think COVID and the current hybrid virtual model has been a huge silver lining and lots of learnings there. So coming back, I think having a supportive ecosystem, extremely important. The second bit that I'd like to call out is making sure that you're constantly staying relevant and learning and constantly upskilling yourselves, I think, is extremely important. Anu spoke about the comfort zone. In fact, I've said this in many sessions before. I have this quotation stuck on my desk, which says that the comfort zone is a beautiful place, but nothing ever grows there. And I think it's really, really important. I have lived my life by that, and it has almost always paid off and extremely well for me. I do not have a single regret. Decisions I have made, which may have seemed completely out of whack at the point, but have always only learned and felt enriched by the experience and grown to be a more experienced, a more balanced professional. But all of you youngsters listening in, I would say opportunities will come your way. Sometimes they may go right under your nose. Look out and grab them. Be willing to take those risks. Make sure you're moving out of your comfort zone if you want to grow. So look out for those, grab them, and you will see yourself progressing at a pace like never before. So like I said, again, whether it is moving from engineering into CA, whether it was moving from business to HR or HR back to business, each of those phases taught me really well and held me in good stead. Today, I feel extremely enriched with all the experiences I've had, all the opportunities. And that's the second thing I would highlight. The third, I said it multiple times, but for each one to be constantly aware of biases. They are unconscious biases. They are all the time at play in our mind. So how do you make sure you're extremely and acutely aware of it and not reacting to those biases, but being deliberate about how you respond? Those are the things I'll highlight, Professor. So there's a lot of disturbance. I don't know if you can hear it as well. But yeah, I would sum up with that, Professor Tina. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shalini. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences about the glass ceiling, about the biases, and which is very true. At some level, we always, it's very unconscious. Yeah, it is very subtle, but we do feel that is there, a shade of bias in certain decisions that are made when women are involved. Anuranjita and Shalini gave us a very corporate experience. I would try to, come to Shipra now to give her experience and what has her journey been like. Yeah, Shipra, over to you.
Yeah, hi. Thank you so much, Dr. Tina. It was really lovely and inspiring to listen to all Anu and Shalini. I've in my career like 10 years, a decade. And it's a very unconventional career. I'm not into finance. I've not studied engineering. I'm not very good with finance, I would say. So, you know, when I started my career, it was with winning MasterChef. And everybody told me that, you know, oh, you know, like every other field, you know, whenever you're trying to get into a job or any work field, you know, you have to really struggle initially, and then eventually slowly you grow. But once I won MasterChef, everybody was like, oh, it's a piece of cake for you, and you know, it's going to be like a easy walk, and you can now take over from here and all. But it wasn't so, you know. It was when I actually won, I realized like this is not the end of it, because I want to start, my journey will start now, because, you know, cooking I'm passionate about, and this is something that I know. I haven't like really done higher education. I'm just a graduate. So what else can I do? And this is what I'm passionate about, and this is what I want to live, you know, like, and grow in this field. And once I stepped into my like being a chef, it was, I just realized it's so male dominated, not just on ground, but even on television, even otherwise, everybody was a male chef, and they were way older to me. So the first, you know, the thing that I found, which was, you know, which was very like, you know, there was a resistance, which was like, I was young, and second, I was a female. So, you know, I had never in my life thought that I would pray to get older faster so that I'm taken seriously in my job. Like, come on, maybe, you know, I can be like, some people can be gifted and they do like really genius stuff like when they're young. So maybe I want to know them, but to make people realize that it's really a tough job. And of course, I'm like, I really don't believe in aggression or something. And, you know, sometimes you do get, you know, your lid off, but I thought that, you know, the best way out is let my work speak for myself. So whatever opportunity came, small or big, whatever, I just try to make the most of it and try to do my best no matter what. Like, I did not think like this job is going to be like, this is too less for me for, you know, I have, you know, now I'm on television or whatever. I just took it. I was like, I'm going to learn and I'm going to brush up my skills and I'm going to become better. I'll educate myself further in my field, and, you know, then we'll see what happens. And slowly, you know, MasterChef travel started, and I got this opportunity to become like the face, the ambassador for it. And that gave me a lot of exposure to international markets. And I started traveling extensively, like, I'm working with Michelin star chefs, local chefs, knowing like recipes and working on recipes and practically doing it. So this really kind of enriched me, not just with, you know, my workspace, but also with experiences, with like people, you know, also in every space. Like, I worked on myself, and I'm not like shy to say that, because I really did work hard on myself to become who I am today. And, you know, I go to international schools, culinary schools, the best in the world, like Cordon Bleu, which is a Parisian school. It's in Paris, and it's in China, and a lot of other, it's in London as well. So, you know, to give classes and teach them Indian cuisine. And once I stepped into the international market, I realized that like Indian, like women in India are like discriminated, and they are discriminated. Like, we are, you know, whenever I'm talking to somebody outside the country, they're like, you know, maybe we're like 50 years behind, but that's how it is. We got to deal with it, you know. And so when I go out, I try to even inspire others, because I see that, you know, Indians are discriminated in a lot of countries, and they do feel homesick. And when they see somebody, you know, like me, who comes into the school and teaches Indian cuisine and has, you know, that power to convince the rest of the whites that, okay, this is our cuisine and this is amazing, and, you know, whatever, whichever small way, you know, you just kind of inspire others. And it's really heartwarming. Like, now I've just come back from Paris, and I had my class at Cordon Bleu, and I had some amazing batch of students, and some of them were Indian, and they were literally like in tears, and they were like, you know, this is home food, and we want to, like, you know, we're so happy that you're here, because we see like people coming, or teachers coming from other countries, and, you know, they teach their cuisine, and, India never comes our flag. This is the first time a flag has come out, and things like that. So you do feel proud of the fact, but at the same time, I think there is so much of struggle, or there's so much to do in this world, and especially being a woman in a country like India, where I think the worst thing that I face, like on the day-to-day challenges, as you call, is like dealing with labor. They never take you seriously. If you're a woman, they would just kind of dismiss you. So yes, it is like a lot of hard work that has to go in, and is going in. I mean, I can share so many examples where I was like, oh my God, like, am I even capable? Like Anu said, like, am I even capable of like doing this or being here? But yeah, I totally agree that, if you want to be successful, see, it cannot be measured, right? And a lot of you tomorrow will be like leaders in your space, and you'll be heading companies and things. I think the only thing that my journey has taught me is to be resilient. And if you believe in yourself, if you think that what you're doing is right, and whether or not people believe in it or not believe in it, I mean, it really doesn't matter. If you believe in it, they will believe in it. Like one day it will come to that. And I think my entire journey, it's been like, fine being a woman, and then being a reality show winner, being young, not being taken seriously. So everywhere, like every step of my career, I've just met so much of resistance. But yeah, I never gave up, because that's not me. And I love challenges. I love exploring. I think, it's sometimes what happens is that when you're growing and people see a threat in you, because they see that, you know your work, your job. So they would try to like, resist, and they will create like, a lot of resistance on the way. But like I said, like if you believe in yourself and your work, and you know what you're doing, you brush up your skills, and do the best. Even if it's a small job, you do your best and move. Like my second cookbook, it's called Sinfully Yours. It won the World Gourmet Awards. We were 30 countries from different, we were 30 countries participating, and this was the only Indian cookbook that had won an award. So it was like a really proud moment. And I think, more than me, of course, as I'm a feminist, I like to support women, and, I want more women in the kitchen, because that's my space, right? Like in the hotels, and whenever I do like different pop-ups, I never see women in the kitchen. They're either doing patisserie, because it's like more smoother, and in the main kitchen, you will never see them working, because the work, I mean, it's really tough work, and men really take over. Even internationally, maybe in India, you would not find a single woman, and then internationally, you will find one. Like I just did a pop-up in Bilbao. It's a gentleman's club in Basque Country, in Bilbao. It's a it's an ancient 180 years old club, and they did not allow women in the club ever. Like it was just for men. So, but I mean, it's the Basque Country. So of course they moved out of it like years back, and now it was me cooking. So when I had a dinner, which I did like a 7-course Indian meal paired with wine and champagne, and there was just one girl in the kitchen who was helping me out, and that's about it. There was just one woman. So that, of course, is like now changing. Now when I go to schools or talk, like, some pep talks and all, I see girls, opting kitchen and coming to culinary scene, which is really, really inspiring, because this is what I wanted to do, to see more of me, multiplying and getting there. Because I really don't want to do something like, as a chef, just like keep cooking and telling you recipes. I think beyond a point, I mean, everybody has like their family secrets and their family recipes, and maybe thousands of them are like better than me. So my challenge is to make like space for Indian cuisine, which is already very popular, but still there's a lot of growth that is pending. So and on a global scale. So yeah, like a woman traveling from India outside in this space is very unusual, and it's a space which I think really I see growth in it it's a lot of hard work, but like, you know, hard work always pays off. And yeah, for to sum up my entire journey, I would say, you know, like Frank Sinatra said, that I have lived life and I've lived it my way, and very few people can say that. So that whole, like, you know, that fits in my scenario. I'm quite happy about it, and I really want, like, you guys, especially, you know, you're the future, and I really see that the only change that can be brought about is by you guys, because when I see this generation, I see them like so mentally strong. They know what they're doing, they know what they want, and especially like I would really compliment the I mean the guys, because they really know how to support a woman. They see through it, and now I see like guys are really different than what they were like a decade back. So it's really a big change, and I think each one of us like doing a little bit in our space would really add up to make it a big wave. And that's what we want, you know, when we say women empowerment, it's not about like showing men down, but it's about helping the other woman grow, and that's woman empowerment. So in no way, you know, I truly believe it's, you know, I do truly believe in energies. I believe in yin and yang, and I think the world is incomplete without a man and a woman together, but they have to be together. I'm really happy for, you know, Anu and Shalini. They said they have like supportive spouses, so it's really amazing, and to see that exists. And I think you all can make that difference. You know, you can give us a better India. You can give us, you can, you know, add that to the India, to the world, because I think we are culturally rich. We are in every way. We have so much to offer to the world, but it all starts like with you guys, you know, the youth of India and the future. So we have high hopes.
Thank you, Shipra. Thank you so much. It was wonderful hearing your experiences. I would next like Aradhana to, you know, please share her experiences, because Aradhana is an entrepreneur. So we typically say that there you get to set your own rules. Yeah, you make the rules. So, but then still there are going to be your own experiences, your own difficulties, your own, you know, roadblocks that you have faced. So how is it different? We heard Anu, we heard Shalini, we heard Shipra, but when you, you know, had your own venture, how easy or how difficult was it for you? Yeah, Radha.
So Tina, I actually did have a lot of resources and support which were needed to be a successful entrepreneur. I'll wind back. I was actually born in a business family. So my grandfather, my dad and his three brothers, they only discussed work 24/7. Our family vacations were also factory visits. Socializing meant having business guests come home. So initiation into the business or entrepreneurial world was really early. I was one among four sisters, and my parents wanted to have a male heir, a son. So that desire never got fulfilled, but it did fuel in me the desire to be that son that my parents never had. So I was intelligent, hardworking, had resources, but this deep rooted ambition that came to prove a point to my family, to my parents, to make a difference in the world really has been my tailwind helping me surge ahead. Apart from that, like everybody else on this panel, and I'm sure our audience out there as well, this curiosity to learn, being open to feedback, being very persistent, and being a self-starter are, I think, the tenets of being an entrepreneur. And most importantly, I do want to share that through all the highs and lows, which have been there, which will continue to be there, I think it's my spiritual inclination which has helped me sail through and constantly rise above. And as an entrepreneur, there are many of those moments where you need not just a support structure, which I've been very fortunate to have in family, but also this spiritual anchor that I have. So I think the very first obstacle I overcame, and that too, while I really don't like gender categorization a lot, but it has been a mainstay in my life also. The first obstacle I overcame was when I wanted to go for my bachelor's to the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. and my family wasn't keen. Again, it was being born and brought up in a traditional Marwadi household that, you know, the investments got to be made in the marriage and not in the education. And I wasn't allowed to go. Spent 1 year here in Delhi University, and then I guess the stars aligned and luck smiled on me, and I was allowed to fly off and pursue my dream. And it's also very interesting that right now I'm part of this multi-billion-dollar industry which helps students, you know, pursue their higher education overseas. But back then, I had no counselor, no fancy profile building, no helicopter parents hovering over me, just some books to do, you know, SAT prep from. But you figure it out like everybody else does. So college was awesome. Gave me the pedigree and the platform both to land 2 jobs. One in a .com in Silicon Valley, one back here in New Delhi. In consulting, Accenture, in fact, Shalini, and it was just at the cusp when it was moving from Anderson Consulting to Accenture. And at that time, I had to let my family and their wishes supersede, and I came back to Delhi as much as I would have liked to be in the valley. First jobs are amazing because you know nothing. So you lap it all up and you learn a ton. And then the recession hit. So I survived 3 rounds of layoffs, and then I was nudged to take a sabbatical. And, you know, one thinks that entrepreneurs, as Tina says, chart out their own course and have it all easy, but it wasn't so. So again, the family business was a joint one, and the rule was that only men can work. So my cousins had the red carpet being rolled out for them to join, and we weren't allowed to work, which I think was an amazing blessing in disguise. My sister and me then decided that we had to do something of our own, and my parents supported us. So we worked on many ideas, waste management and biomedicine and coaching. And the mantra always, even though we didn't know what next, was always think big, start small, scale fast, but act now. Just get going without knowing what next. Till date, that applies really. And I'll talk about that a little bit more. So we had this huge, grand business plan, you know, keeping in line with this mantra that we would be this one-stop shop coaching company for engineering, medicine, CAT, study abroad. Not very different from, you know, the current day unacademies, Byju's and all the others. But back then when, you know, we quickly realized that what we wanted to do was like 4 different companies in itself. And so, you know, reworked the business plan and said we'll focus on study abroad and CAT because CAT and GMAT are similar. We reached out to Kaplan, Barron's, Princeton Review, all the international big names, and we wanted their India rights. Princeton Review responded and they said, we'll give you Delhi. Even then we had the gumption, so we were just starting off that doesn't work. It's too small. So then they agreed to give us the rights to 3 cities. We bit the silver bullet, and in less than 5 years, not only had our stupendous performance made them give us national rights, but we also managed to convert to becoming a master franchise, which was amazing actually. It allowed us to scale even faster. We opened sub-franchisees and we didn't have to block our capital in, you know, running our own operations. Early days were hugely challenging. You know, I was not just training to be a teacher, but also had to, like Anu, fake it till you make it, teach GMAT to students who were twice my age and they were corporates while I was a fresher. So it was intimidating. And then you're hiring and then you're trying to ramp up sales and run admin. It was not easy. And of course, there's always finite budgets because we were bootstrapped. We didn't have fancy investors writing big checks for us, as is the story today. I have to say, at the right point, a lot of help and expertise kept coming along to supplement our skills as we grew, learned, failed, innovated, and then grew again. While we had started off with a CAT business, very quickly we realized within a year or two that that wasn't going to go anywhere, so we closed that down. And today, as some of you may know, we truly are this omni-channel ecosystem for students who want to pursue their global higher education in any country. And we handhold them from grade 6 as to get better grades, better scores, better admits, and thereby better careers. And I have to say that one of the reasons we've succeeded is we focused on our core value always, amongst many. The one that we hold closest to our heart is Saraswati before Lakshmi. And that's what drives our company's culture and has helped us build that trust in our students and their families. Because for all of us here, we're here today to talk about our careers, to learn how to make our careers better, and we're here sharing our career stories. So it all starts, now, right? Or several years ago, when we're figuring out what next and are clueless. Along this journey, we always had this pressure of optimizing costs. So we had editors, our business was seasonal and they weren't utilized. So ended up through LinkedIn, by spending some $10, got some international projects. And now today that, project that we got to optimize our editors' downtime is a separate standalone company, which has marquee clients in the US, companies like Chegg, Brainly, Pearson, McGraw-Hill, where we do content development, tutoring, grading services. And that itself was a really hard journey. I mean, I started off not knowing where it would lead. And then suddenly I was trying to run a India-based retail business, B2C, and then run a nighttime shift for a US-based B2B business. And then one foot in the US trying to prospect business, and one foot in India trying to travel to Tirupatis and Lucknows and Chandigarh, trying to build a retail business. And it was hard. And eventually I had to hive it off into two separate companies, and now both have grown and taken their own charted their own journey. Fast forward, COVID, of course, was an unimaginable blow for us. It completely took the wind out of our lungs in every sense. So what were our strengths suddenly became this cross that we were carrying. Being US focused, being in the international education sector when nobody wanted to go overseas and borders were sealed, having a physical center network when everything was online and edtech. Survival itself was a question mark, and the task was extremely onerous. As a human, you can't change your DNA overnight. As a company, you certainly can't change your DNA overnight. And we had these questions we didn't know the answers to. So do we shut down our physical centers? How do we invest in tech? We don't have this engineering team. We're a legacy business and not a fancy startup. So how do you raise capital? We're this David and we have this Goliath we're competing with. It's this resilience and persistence, which everybody's spoken about, which helped. And slowly but surely, we've earned not just the right to exist, but the right to win. Amongst tremendous challenges, tons of self-doubt, lots of regret and guilt. Of course, I too have a family, have 2 children. One is 16, one is 10. Tons of health, illness, learning issues, emotional issues, teenage issues, whatnot. So of course, it's a juggling act. And while there's immense support at home from the family, parents, husband, in-laws, but I have to say a lot of the support is moral support, which is extremely important. In India, we still do fall short of the often physical support that is required to make it that much easier. But again, you learn not to think about it. You just take it one day at a time, 1 hour at a time, what next, and you keep going ahead. So, my message to everybody really is that I'm sure that day will come, like Anu said, you all will have working wives. Maybe someday in some seminar, someone will say you all will have, or you may have working husbands, because that burden of patriarchy also has to move away from the men. And of course, the men have to step up to make it as normal for women to step out there as it is for them. A lot has to change in our ecosystem, but I do see it changing. At our company, at least half our workforce, if not more, are women, including the leadership team. And I'm proud to say one of our senior leaders is the primary caregiver while having a full-fledged career of 4 children that they have as a family, while the wife has an extremely demanding career. A lot of men in our company would take time off to tutor their kids or to cook for their kids. And it's not just about having children. a lot of men will take time off as women to pursue to pursue passions. I may be a pet parent. I may be passionate about fitness. So I think the paradigm is changing a lot, and I try and not think of this gender bias as, again, Anu said, it's not easy for anyone, whether male or female, and that's life, right? And we keep going ahead with tons of learning every day. So that's it from me.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Aradhana. Wonderful speaking to you. Wonderful to see how the career life of an entrepreneur also has similar kinds of challenges. We had a few questions in mind, which I would be posting, and any of the panelists can actually take those questions and give us your perspective on what you think about it. Of course, we have spoken a lot about in detail about the glass ceiling. Is there really a glass ceiling? Sometimes we tend to now say that it's all based on talent, so we don't have the glass ceiling anymore. So we have spoken at length, all the four panelists have spoken at length on that. So let me pose this question slightly differently. In every workspace, we see that women have their own set of challenges, as men do. And we often speak about helping each other, fixing each other's crowns. Yeah. So, but when it comes to a day-to-day, work, we are so engrossed that are we able to do it? That's the question. Are we able to hold or support another, female employee, try to understand what her challenges could be? And are we able to build around up, maybe with our policies or practices at our workspace, identifying or targeting those difficulties? So what has your experiences been in terms of, having a community where, women are working, and we say that let's, take up this issue. This is a practical issue. How do we solve this? How can the company or how can the organization look at solving this problem? Yeah. Any one of the panelists who has
Maybe I'll probably give my thoughts. And I mean, for me, a practical example is, connecting with the two other panelists apart from Shalini here today. I mean, Shalini and I have been long associated because of the HR fraternity, and we whinge together about ye nahi ho raha, wo nahi ho raha, and those are very therapeutic conversations actually. Just talking to each other and just letting your hair down over a glass of wine and complaining to each other. Nothing comes out of it apart from venting, but that's very therapeutic to me. I think those conversations help, whether with my women colleagues or with my male colleagues. And because the women journey is slightly different, I think we can have a different chat. As there is a male to male chat, there is a woman to woman chat. And I don't think either way there's anything wrong with it. But this whole question about glass ceiling, I mean, we four of us have probably, I'm really inspired by everybody's journey here, whether it's Shipra or Aradhana or Shalini. But, there have been instances till I worked in the corporate world, like the big company world, I never felt that, there was nothing that I couldn't break through, right? I mean, yes, there were challenges and all that, but I could break through, I could persist, I could push. Now I'm an entrepreneur, like Aradhana. I empathize with her. I understand the challenge. It's a very lonely journey when you are an entrepreneur, because what you have to hang on by is your own self-belief. There is probably, it's not even about men or women. And I'll give you an example. So for me, I'm in my second fundraise of capital infusion in the company. We're a digital platform, and we actually, do skilling and employment for men and women, but with a DEI lens. So that's what we do. And everything underlying is about how do women and men learn differently, because a lot of training platforms, and I'd love to get your feedback, are very gender agnostic. And a lot of focus is on jobs, whereas what we found from consumer insights is women may be motivated by jobs, may not be motivated by jobs, which doesn't mean they don't want to learn. So here is the funny bit now. I get out in the market. My first round was a seed round, which I did with HNIs and foundations and stuff like that. So this was before the market went into a spiral sometime in February. I said, chalo, this time we'll go to the VCs, not the big VCs like Sequoia or Lighthouse. We'll go to smaller VCs, right? So we started our round, and, I think we started it just like in April, May. And I went to 4, okay? And I come from the banking world, so I get this part of the world. It was amazing. Nobody gets it. Right. And they were like, why are you doing this? Acha charity kare ho, acha NGO banaya. I mean, nahi, NGO nahi hai. This is a for-profit company. And, we are giving you returns. I mean, what better can you have that you're impacting something which is core? And also the fact that it's giving you returns. And just to tell you the numbers in India, this is for white collar jobs, are below 9% for women. From the time I joined, it was 35%. Now it's 9%. Multiple reasons. We won't get into that right now. But here is the funny thing. When I'm pitching to largely men, right? These are men who are not evil, wicked. Please don't get me wrong, all the men here, but they don't get it, right? I'm also pitching to women. And by the way, even those women haven't been helpful. I've actually had women VCs telling me कि अनु ये education skilling वगैरह तो ठीक है, but थोड़ा makeup डालिए, थोड़ा retail डालिए, बिकता है, right? Now these are women VCs, because women VCs are equally conservative. They are watching, if a male VC is taking a punt on me, then they will come along, but they will not come along other way around. My earlier cap table has 2 women, 5 men. My lead investors are men. My mentors are men. So, this notion about glass ceiling, I think finally boils down to how women are helping women as well. And there is a bit of work to be done. I certainly have been more beneficiary, whether it's capital or mentoring or advisory. Coming for men is just more out there. But my learning, and I quickly stopped, going to the VCs, because I realized I need to do more work. So I spoke to some very senior women in the market, like Irina Vittal and all. Only one piece of advice, Aradhana, it might help you too, as you are in the same space, is ki Anu, top line badhao, revenue banao, jhak maar ke sare log aayenge. So we went back and we said, we're going to double our revenues this year. Okay. And then we're going to get out again, because otherwise there is this view that, and I understand the VC world. See, they are also playing with somebody else's money and they have to give returns. Okay. And the lady who told me, who shall remain unnamed, saying makeup dalo or beauty dalo, I told her ki, I'm not a TikTok, I'm a LinkedIn, right? And she's like, phir LinkedIn ho to phir banane ka kya zarurat hai? Right? So they just don't get it. And I realized that money is happening. It'll be, money is not important from just the passion that we have to do in this space, but it's very important for me to prove that we can monetize women community and learning. Right now, what's happening in the women's space, everybody's like, let's have conversation. We have multiple women community where we do these chit chats. We don't allow men there, and we're not being able to monetize it. So unfortunately for entrepreneurs like us, we have to break that ceiling now in the investor world, because they don't trust it. It's very different in the US, very different in India. So just my, current, what I'm going through with the VC world has been absolutely gender agnostic. Both men and women not interested, because we don't believe that you can make this 100 crore company. So we've got more resolved and said, in 5 years, we will make it 100 crore company, and this is how we are going to do it. So I just wanted to put it out there. Not sure whether I addressed the question, but I hope it helps somebody else who might be in this space.
Yeah, so I completely get your point, Anu, but let us build on a hypothesis. Say, for example, that if women are there more in number, yeah, we typically say that women also probably tend to behave like men in a corporate setup, because that's how the world works. Yeah, so they also try to behave in a similar fashion. But will this be different if the male-female ratio, yeah, if females in the workspace increases? Yeah, typically our students, when I was chatting with the team regarding, what all they would want to come up as points of discussion, they said that let's look at educational institutions. Yeah, educational institutions, 50% you find teachers, but that does not women as teachers, and in corporates, those numbers are sadly low. Yeah, women representation is much low. I did not personally want to ask that question, because when you come to business schools, yeah, again, it's just 10%. It's not more than that. Yeah, so while they were putting it in a school context. If I put it in a business school context, it's just like any other corporate world. The number is very less. So the next question is, will this ratio improvement, if we look at more women coming forward, will this help? Yeah, if at all we say hypothetically that there are certain biases, there are certain glass ceilings, will that improve?
I mean, I'll let other panelists answer it,
Yeah,
but very
one-
quickly,
one.
my
Shalini,
view would be
you
that
want to
it
take
will not impact, because today you have 50% women in education in STEM and less than 10% actually working. Let's talk about XLRI, right? Which has a very good HR course. In my batch, there were 20 out of 100 women. 120 ka batch, 60 P, IR, 60 PM, 20 women. Today it's much better. So in HR, it's assumed they're more women. But do you know that less than 15% CHROs are women? So the data, there's something else we need to do. I'm going to pause here and pass it on to others.
Yeah, definitely, because we still are waiting for a female American president. Yes, the number of women on boards is very distressfully low. Yes, all of this is something which are points of concern. So the question is just that, if these numbers improve, will things be different? Yeah.
So, Dr. Tina, I'm going to kind of give a shot at that. And I think what Anu spoke of, very different perspective, given the VC environment and what she's working with. If I go back to, but a very valid point in terms of, while the ratios if I look at our organization or most organizations at entry levels, it's a very balanced slate. You'll see a close to 50-50 ratio. The challenge is sustaining those long careers, and which is why those numbers drop off as significantly as you move up the ranks. And there is certainly a problem that still needs solving. We're not far from there, actually. So a couple of things, and to your original question, which was on, women helping the cause, coming together, networks of women. Firstly, I would compliment you all on what you've put together here today. I think more forums like this, which allow for experience sharing, which allow for putting out some of our learnings for the younger lot to listen and soak in and absorb, I think is a step in the right direction. There are many such forums that happen. And I'm sure most of the other panelists here find themselves in roles where industry forums reach out for mentorships. I don't think there's enough of that, but there are forums which allow us to actually mentor senior women outside, helping them, getting them to see opportunities like, excuse me, like they ought to, helping them tide over what would be tougher phases of their career journey, so on and so forth. If I talk of our organization, we also, like most large corporates would run, we have a forum. We call it the KPMG Network of Women. It's called KNOW, which actually really helps bring a little more structure to be conscious of what we're trying to do over here. So helping women come together, network. It's, by the way, we very consciously don't want to call it, it's not a male bashing forum, right? It's about just creating awareness levels. And I say that because in early years when we set it up, there was a lot of noise. Oh, what are all these women huddling in a room and doing? And we very quickly changed the format. We tried to make sure that this is an organization-wide agenda. We need as many men to embrace it. Today, by the way, I have one of my colleague male partners who leads our inclusion and diversity agenda. Extremely passionate about it, looking at how we drive up our gender ratios. But a forum like this actually just allows for women to come together to learn from one another. When you've been through it, you've gone through those tough phases of life, you can actually share learnings, right? As you get older and wiser, there are experiences that you can walk through for the young ones who are still learning and grappling with it. And so I think some structure at an industry level certainly exists, although loosely, but there are forums. There are forums within most organizations that try to pull it together, where you share and learn from one another. But end of the day, and I very strongly believe this, that a lot of this is about women in the workforce. How will we get more women in there? To your question, will it get better? It absolutely will, because when we talk about the workforce, we are actually all working to service a market, which is a very balanced market. So unless you mirror the diversity that that market offers you, you will really not be successful. So if you've got to be successful, you need to mirror the diversity of the market that you service. So I think more such forums are much required. It will help the process. But above all, I think for all women, to stay focused and to want your career or want to be successful is, I think, above all else. You really need to want it badly enough, because there are enabling environments. And there's a lot, I think, that the corporate world does. I think the hybrid virtual, I spoke of it earlier, is a big enabler. It's a big leveler of sorts. So there's a lot available, but you've got to want it badly enough. You cannot buckle at the first cry of a baby or the first taunt of a mother-in-law. You've got to want your careers badly enough to and be ambitious, because I think the enabling ecosystem is there. We need to do a lot more of what's already being done, Dr. Tina. So yes, there are structures, and it will only get better if we have more in the workforce.
I want to add to that. I think one of the things that where women can make a difference is by being that role model themselves. So I know in my company, in our company, our policies are gender agnostic. But being a woman, it was easier for me to enforce certain excuses women want to take or make. For instance, not wanting to take a late evening flight or finding cabs unsafe. And, it was so much easier to push it that if I can do it and I do it, there's no reason why you can't do it. So the only allowance that we make perhaps is around, late evening travel in terms of safety. And that too, I think, is really not a gender thing. It's more the individual, but women try to make that the excuse, and that's where we cave in. But women have to push harder to other women and say, no, that it doesn't require that much flexibility or that much more empathy, which is different from what a male would also need. I think we have to be the levelers rather than wanting a longer leash.
Yeah, Aradhana, based on that, what you just said, how important is social conditioning? Yeah, both of men and women. Yeah, when we're talking about, you just said that sometimes women don't want to do it, not because they are not allowed to, but there is an inherent inhibition that I don't want to do it in a certain way. So what role does social conditioning play here?
Huge. It's huge. I think, I don't know, maybe 80-90% of the role is social conditioning. What kind of role models did you have in your own workplace? What kind of experiences have you been through? But our society is ridiculously biased. So, I'm a member of YPO, and we have this YPO spouse chat group. And a new member came, and the minute the new member's name came, it was like a gender agnostic name. Everybody greeted her. And he said, oh, I'm so sorry, but I am the spouse, the wife is the member, and I am the spouse, and hence I'm part of this. So, and a lot of us on that, everybody in that group was extremely well educated. Some would have also been working, but the assumption is spouse ho, so a woman ho, member to sit. And I also sometimes, at the same forum, I saw a woman, and I'm like, she's not married. What is she doing here? It took me 30 seconds to realize she's the member, she's not the spouse. So social conditioning is so deeply ingrained. Shalini spoke so much about biases. We have so many subconscious biases, which, we're far away from being aware of. It'll take time and a lot of call out by people around us.
Yeah. Shipra, I have one question for you. Cooking, when we talk about cooking, we typically consider this in a stereotypical Indian household. We consider this to be the job of a woman. Yeah, if we look at the traditional way in which, but then when you come to professional cooking, very ironically, it's the other way around. It is again male dominated. Yeah, that's what I have read. I don't know if I'm right on that or not. It's again male dominated. So you had your own venture, the Darzi Bar and Kitchen. Yeah, when you were trying to raise capital for that, when you were looking for investment, did you kind of, how difficult was it for you to find investors, and how did you take that along? So if you could just share experiences there.
So I came on board as a partner for that project, and I think I don't think raising money is a problem. I think choosing who to have on board is a problem, because you just don't want to work with, at least me, I'm really careful with who I want to partner, because eventually it's like a marriage. So you've got to be, clear in the beginning. And I think that is, certain times you should learn to say no to, and there's nothing wrong in it. And I think it's a very powerful thing to know that this is something that you do not want. Maybe at this point in time, you might not know what you want to do in future or what you want from life or career or where you want to go, but it's important also to know what you don't want or what you would not do, especially like, say for Shipra's Kitchen, we do content creation and pop-ups all across the globe. And I like to work with girls and get as many girls on board to work. And we have certain do's and don'ts. It's not about money. It's not about anything. It's about the values. And I think that also makes a lot of difference in any business that you're in or any job that you're in. That, if you have certain rules or norms which you have and you follow, I think you are respected. And eventually, in whatever space you are, big or small, I think it doesn't matter how much money you have, how rich you are, what status you're in, or, it's about your own set of values. And you, like she said, like Aradhana, like you lead by example. And I totally agree with her. Like, it was in my journey, it was so difficult to, and it's still on, like it's not over. But yeah, like to just say that, to breaking the cliche of being a girl who is, and going to be a celebrity chef, because everybody was, like I said, they said, oh, it's just like, she's going to go away and all of that. But yeah, resilience keeps you there. But now today, we are celebrating 75 years of Indian independence. And I'm really proud to say that the government has chosen 75 Indian ambassadors, cultural ambassadors for the country, and I'm one of them. So I feel really proud to say that, in a small way, which is cooking, like most of the people who are into, like, banking or entrepreneurs, or cooking is like, for somebody who's sitting at home and doing it, and mostly like the staff is doing it. But yeah, to do it in a small way and make a difference means a lot. So I think everybody has a journey, but like, even if it's like small steps at a time, you can have a bigger vision, and eventually reach there.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Shipra. Anu, this is one question that many of our students wanted, to know. What does it take, to be a successful person, a woman, in the corporate world? Because what does it take at the end of the day, 10 years down the line? That's where we see women dropping out. And the other speakers were talking about persistence. There has to be a certain level of persistence, because at the entry level, the numbers are the same. There isn't much difference between male and female ratio, but it's down the line where these numbers start dropping. So what does it take to actually push yourself after that initial maybe 5 or 8 years, so that you continue with your journey?
You have super 3 role models here who in some ways are continuing with their journey. And I think it's probably just, bet on yourself. I think most of the time the women give in much more easily. And there are challenges, I'm not saying that every woman has a supportive family environment. They do have challenges. It's tough. Forget about your husband when your mother tells you, it's time for you to look after your baby. Ab ho gaya career warrior. Right. And these are things you hear very often. My mother is a doctor. And, when I decided to stay back in London, she anyway had written me off a long time back. She thinks she's a wayward daughter of, we had 2 sisters. And she said, ab to ye bilkul hi pagal ho gaya hai. Now, how is she going to manage this? But, and at that point of time, my husband, who actually got up and said, nahi, karte hain, we'll try it out, right? But she was also nervous. So I think one is just believing yourself. And life is too short. It's we women sometimes are always living for somebody else. Aaj husband hai, kal bacche hain, phir aur caring responsibility. And on my platform, I'll be really honest, I have a lot of women coming in late 40s, early 50s, looking for purpose then. And they suddenly realize it's too late, right? Because what's happened is it's never late, which is what we tell them. But they feel, there are 3 psychological needs, if I can share some consumer insights, which both men and women are looking for, but I'll take only the women lens on this view. One is love, right? Which all of us get from our families, from kids, from extended friend network, all that. The second one is security, right? Which somewhere I find women compromise on ki theek hai yaar, wo kar raha hai, it's okay. We all talk about financial independence, but when it finally boils down to it, I'm okay to earn less than him. Let him bring the bread home. I will get the butter, right? Very few women will step up, like the three of them here, will say, no, I will be the primary person, as Aradhana was talking about. So financial independence, women actually do take a compromise for the sake of comfort sometimes, or for the sake of some other reasons, right? And the third one, the most important one, which is coming out, is respect, right? What we are finding is a lot of women are pining for respect. A lot of women who claim they gave up their career, suddenly their kids are turning around saying, Mom, aap karte kya? Right? And the respect for dad is more because you're keeping the fire burning. So that respect is where they get solidly hurt. And, now, and a lot of women come and talk on the platform saying, if one advice I could give to younger women is keep going. Don't give up, right? Don't give up and don't get swayed. Keep going. Life has a way of sorting itself out. So as they say in Nike ad, just keep going and just do it, right? Don't give up. You're more than worth it. And so there's a whole notion of self-belief, and it's tough, especially for women. It's tough. It comes from their inner dialogue. It comes from conditioning, and it comes from a sense of comfort zone as well. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, I would like to add to Anu that, yes, I think, it depends on how motivated you are. It depends on the fire in you. And sometimes, like, I come from a dweller's family, so they did not really understand that what is a chefy business, like what are you doing, like cooking. You can come here and join the family business instead of doing this. So it took me quite a while to actually convince them that this is what I want to do, because this is going to be my identity. And today I'm identified as an individual in my own space. And I'm very happy about it, because I think it takes time, but once you achieve that, once you're there where you aim to be or target to be, I think that space is very giving. You get very centered. You're a different person altogether. You're quite at peace with yourself. You have a purpose. You have a bigger purpose in life, and you know what you want to do. So a lot of things become really clear, but you really, really have to be patient. You really have to be patient. And of course, like motivation, sometimes, you seek outside, but if you're self-motivated, I think that's the best thing that you can do to yourself. Having a family, being single or whatever, if you are well motivated and you have like enough fire in you, I think it can keep you. I think that's the only way that can keep you going. Otherwise, how we are conditioned in Indian families, that you study to grow up, basically. You don't study to become something. Girls mostly, especially, like I come from Himachal, it's a really small state and very small town, Shimla. And if you ask girls, they're like, when they turn teenagers and touching 18, 19, 20, they just want to get married. I mean, that's the whole aim in life, like, to get married. And a lot of people in the community also, like, they are, everything is like sound backgrounds, affluent families. They just want to get married and settle, because for them, settled is not having a career, but settled is when you are settled with a man and have kids and have a family and you take it forward. So that is called settled. So I think, yes, of course, conditioning is very important, right? When we are putting the seed, food for thought into children. I think, like, if I see the West, and especially like the Scandinavian countries, if you see, they are like really advanced, in thought process. And I speak to my friends there, they're like, the thought process is so different than how we are brought up in our country. And I think, if we are also brought up in the same way, that we are no less than a boy child, I mean, it would be different, if we stop like in like that state when you're like young, if that is when you're not discriminated, I think you'd grow up to be more confident and a different person altogether.
Yeah, Shipra. Shalini, if I come to you, I mean, from what Shipra said, basically that, in the Indian context, when we say settled basically means to get married. Yeah, settled always, even if you're working, even if you end up with a good job, but then are you finally settled is the question. Yeah, so when you say settled, that's what it means. But then on whom is this burden of getting settled, in a family? And we say a lot of decision-making process when it comes to personal decisions basically is on the woman. Yeah, there's so much of, when it's with regards to what Anu was saying earlier, where does the family stay, or what about the kids, who takes care of the kids, something as small as probably what menu for dinner, everything, all of this decision making at the end of the day comes on the woman. So do you think that this proportionality on the woman on decision making also adds onto her, the general stress that happens when she goes to the workplace?
Yes, actually, we touched upon it earlier. So I did say that I think there is a bit of extra load on women in our ecosystem. I do believe that's changing quite fast when I look at whether it is in my home or I look at colleagues. And like I said earlier, I think the last 3 years being locked down, I know a lot of men who have taken to a lot, learning a bunch of things. Most of my male colleagues pride themselves with having learned a little bit of cooking and done a little bit of new chores in the home. So I think it's getting more balanced. It still has a long way to go. See, and we must remember when we're talking about all of this conversation, today we are still talking of a very small percentage of the Indian environment. There are many, many homes where the awareness levels are nowhere close to what we're discussing around this table today. If you look at women in the workforce, the minute you're talking, you're already kind of talking of a very limited segment. Within that segment, Dr. Tina, I think there's certainly more awareness levels. Yes, there is more pressure. And I touched upon it earlier. You've heard that from others. But I think it's getting easier, A, because I think men are getting more aware. B, there are all kinds of help today. And today is, again, speaking to this system. I know families who use online food ordering to ease the stress. It is getting easier. You look at the next generation, first of all, mostly nuclear families. Youngsters today, I have a 22-year-old daughter who has no plans of getting married anytime in the near future, let alone talk of having children. So the generation that's coming up is thinking very differently. So I mean, I've not heard these youngsters who are all poor things silently listening to us ramble on and on. I would have loved to hear some of their voices and views as well. But I know that the thinking is changing. But I just want to remind the group here, we're talking of a very small segment. There are many parts where, to your question, the burden on women is very high. And sadly, we're not even discussing that group. If you go down to outside of the metros, you go to tier 2 cities, it's a very different environment. India will change and the workforce will truly change when things start changing at that level. There are organizations focused and working there, but not enough. Of course, part of why we're discussing it in this forum is because even within this small segment that we're talking about, there is a challenge. We still need to change things. But to your question, yes, there is pressure. As you go further down in India, that pressure is higher. I think we're blessed to see that pressure ease off in many ways because men are thinking differently. They're thinking less biased. There are a lot of technologies enabling us to do a bunch of things much easier than we did before. So things are getting easier. There is no doubt pressure, but I think we're still talking of a limited segment.
Yeah. So what, based on what Shalini said, that we have a generation coming up which doesn't think of getting married early on. They think of education. They think of building their careers. So that's what we are looking at. That's a new discussion which we'll be having. Based on that, Aradhana, I would want to come to you, and could you probably quickly shed some light on this trend that we see on the male-female aspirants who kind of opt for global education in India? What has been your experiences with Manya? How does this new trend look like?
We've seen no difference in whether it's respect to countries or courses between women and men making any different choices. I think as we've spoken about today, till the time of getting an education, there's a lot more parity and equality. It's post getting that education degree when the rubber hits the road and you have to make career choices when the family comes in that this divide becomes far larger. But there's no noticeable trend that I can share.
Okay, probably the one of the last questions that we have, and we can open it for further questions from the students also. Post-pandemic, Shalini has touched on that in terms of, you know, the men in the family suddenly realizing that, you know, how things happen both for a working woman as well as for at the home front. But then what other changes has probably the pandemic caused, you know, from a working woman perspective? We see a lot of work from home happening. Many companies are still sticking to that format of, doing business. How does this change actually look for women in the workspace? Is there anything different, or, you know, it's basically just the same thing going ahead, that we are working from, we used to work from office, so now we are working from home? So is there any change that you have noticed post the pandemic in terms of, you know, any aspect of maybe working from home, or anything else that might come to your mind?
I can try answering that.
Yes.
It's the thing that I've seen like a big change after the pandemic is like the boys or the men, they've started to learn how to cook, and they can like now make tiffins for the kids or whatever, you know, they can cook. And like a lot of guys have started cooking, which is really nice, and I think it adds to the support for a career woman, definitely.
Yeah, we have a few questions also coming in from the audience. I would probably take the first question. It has come from Prajwal. Yeah. He says that he has understood the challenges that women face, their journeys, and he's considerate on the same. But he would request the panelists to tell one thing as men that we need to change that will reduce your struggle to a certain extent. I think we did touch upon that also. But then if any of the panelists would want to take this question, how can men change to make things better? I don't know.
They can do lots of things. I think to start with, you know, read the book called Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus. And there is a fundamental way of being, and it's not right or wrong. I mean, both have to coexist. But I think the biggest one stands for me is empathy. Just empathizing with each other is extremely important, whether we like it or not. Men are in more powerful positions in almost every field, as you heard from four of us, right? And I think four of us are fairly determined ladies out here, but yet we come through roadblocks. So just empathizing and sometimes just helping us clear our path. Maybe we've all referred to the men in our lives who helped us do that. And we hope you're able to do it with your spouses and your partners and other women who come in your lives.
Yeah, and apart from childbirth and breastfeeding, there's nothing else which a man can't do. So pitch in equally. I spoke about the lack of physical support and more of moral support. Apart from moral support, give the physical support as well.
And I think respect is a very important aspect in any relationship, and especially I think like men should respect women, you know, with whatever, like, you know, career, not career, wearing whatever clothes. I think respect is really important. Once you learn to respect, a female can be mother, you know, sister, girlfriend, somebody else's girlfriend, wife. I think it would make a lot of difference. The society will change.
Yeah. Any of the students, if they want to raise any questions, we are now open to questions from the audience. Yeah. So Shikha, we have one question from Shikha, and there is, of course, a lot of literature on this already available on the aspect of guilt vis-a-vis a woman's journey. Yeah. So she asked, did any one of you feel guilt during their journey, whether related to bringing up kids or giving importance to your career? Yeah, I can see Shalini has unmuted. Yeah, Shalini, go ahead.
Yeah, because one has got asked this many times, and it always takes me back to when my little daughter was growing up. There was a phase when we lived using Post-its. I would travel 3 days a week, and I'd have these Post-its all over for her, whether it was instructions for the day, whether it was instructions on all the dabbas that were cooked and put in the fridge and in what order she was meant to eat it, or little reminders and nudges. And every time I stuck those, there was that guilt of, oh my God, am I not around enough? And that went on for years. Even today, there are parts of me that feel guilty that did she grow up and mature much sooner than she should have, because she was forced to be a lot more independent at a very young age. But I must tell you, recently on one of these Women Day events in the office, my team reached out to her for a video recording, which I had no idea. And she narrated her growing up years. And for the first time, I felt a little free of that guilt, because it was the most heart-wrenching, heartwarming story as she told it from her perspective, with a big, big thank you to say how much she appreciated it, and what it meant to her. Of course, there were hard times, but when she looks at it now, she feels she's learned a lot. But to your question, Dr. Tina, and to whoever asked that, I think everyone here would have grown up with some of those guilt pangs. But you've got to also look at what the children are learning in the course of that. And I do believe that working women actually tend to go out of their way to do a lot more to make their presence felt than those who are not working. And I mean, I say this because it's that guilt that drives you to be more than present all the time. That's what I feel.
I think I'm going to add to that. The guilt is like a rocking chair. It's never going to get you anywhere, but it's still omnipresent. And one of the ways that I've dealt with it is that I know that if I made the other choice, I would be such a miserable, unhappy person that I'd make a miserable parent as well. Of course, this guilt also drives us sometimes to take boldly brazen decisions to try and get this misconcept of work-life balance, which I don't think exists. But once I was traveling with my team in Punjab, and there was a choice to take an overnight train or to take the next day train. And taking an overnight train just wasn't the safest, but I couldn't bear the thought of losing one full more day away from the children. I'd already been on the road for 5 days, and I took that train. I was the only woman in a compartment full of men in an overnight train. I genuinely felt unsafe, even though my male colleagues had come to drop me till the train station, and I messaged them that I won't sleep and stay in touch with me through the night. Pehle to neend aayi jati hai. Second of all, journey mein network also went. So was it the best and most comfortable decision I took? No, but to overcome the guilt and genuinely have more quantity time, because quantity time is as important as quality time. One has to make these brazen choices, but all's well that ends well, and this guilt is a rubbish thing. So the sooner we deal with it, the better it is.
Thank you so much, Aradhana. Thank you. Of course, as you said, that we do, kind of might feel, but it's something that you have to overcome, that there is something that it takes you nowhere. Yeah. And the other side of the coin is more important. What happens if you quit? Yeah. You're a miserable person and you end up being a bad parent. So it's always better to live with a little bit of guilt rather than not do it at all. We have a very general question from one of the audience. What are the challenges which an entrepreneur has faced in family business? That is, the question is for Aradhana. Aradhana, would you want to take that question?
So while, my business is a family business, but, we really started off on our own. Initially, me and my sister were co-founders, and after a few years, she moved on. The biggest challenge that we face, and I don't know if this is so much as being family business or any business which has co-founders, is the communication, right? Often there will be decisions which won't go according to what you believe is right. Communication boundaries are crossed, especially if you're family. And those certainly are difficult to deal with. The way we found a solution to it was that we had this mentor and advisor who would always weigh in when we reached these sticky issues between us, which would crop up. And then his word was the last word, and we both had implicit trust in him. So that was, I think, the only issue I've really faced as, if you were to call our business a family business.
Okay. Thank you so much. If there are no further questions, then we will be wrapping up the session. Yeah, we'll be taking this one final question. I think we have from Shakila Durai, and there'll be the last question. Any of the panelists can take the question. What do you think about women leadership programs in companies? What is an ideal program according to you? And what should be the content of such programs? The question is regarding women leadership programs. Anyone who would want to take the question?
I can share my thoughts. I think it all depends whether you're talking junior, mid, or senior level. Leadership usually is identified at senior level, but the journey really begins at junior level. And there are gender agnostic leadership programs for men and women, but specifically for women, like, for example, we do a lot of these, and we tend to focus on more mindsets. And depending on mid-level to senior level, what we find is we follow 7C model, and we look for where are they in terms of their clarity of purpose, their courage, their conviction, the choices, and the confidence. And when you go at senior levels, you're usually working with talented women who've already kind of broken the ceiling to a point. And now it's all about how do you get to the corner room in some ways. And what you work is with navigation, the savviness, like Shipra was talking about, when she's in a kitchen, there are more men. And how does she navigate? So in the corporate world, you'll see more men around the CXO table. So the focus becomes a lot more on purpose and navigation. And how do you clear your path? The reality is that you'll be faced with more men, which may not necessarily be a problematic thing, but you need to know how you navigate your path through. So the programs are, usually pegged at the life and the career stage of a woman. Mid-level, you focus on the 3 M's like marriage, maternity, mobility, and their conviction and purpose. At senior levels, you will get into visioning, strategy, and how you navigate. But that's what we do. But yeah, I'm sure others will have more to add to this.
Yeah. Anyone else who would want to add, any of the panelists who would want to add anything to this? Yeah, Shalini?
I was just going to say beautifully summarized, Anu, because those phases are very important. And I would just add one other element is we spoke of the networks, that kind of the wider ecosystem that can enable and support the role modeling bit of it. And I would say some bit of executive sponsorship for younger women to see them through and make sure we don't lose them along the career. I think that's quite effective when we see senior people actually take accountability and step in to actually sponsor younger women to be there through that journey for them, with them. I think that also helps.
Thank you, Shalini. Anyone else? So we'll just come to an end of this discussion. I would like to thank all the 4 panelists, Anuranjita, Shipra, Shalini, Aradhana. Thank you so much for joining for this discussion. I'm sure all the participants here are students and all the other members who have come here to join for this discussion. We have a few key points that we have picked up from this discussion. Challenges are of different types, and there is no doubt. And we don't make an assumption that only because you're a woman, you have a set of challenges. Men also have, and that is equally relevant for us to understand. But is there a gender specific challenge? The discussion proves that yes, there could be certain challenges which are very specific to women, which sometimes men do not face. So what is it that it takes for you to be a woman, to go out and say that, I don't want to be restricted to my house or my household? You have to dare to be you should dare to say that, yes, I can be the first. Yeah, the first in the boardroom, the first in my office, the first in a club. Yeah. So first thing is for you to say that, yes, I want to be the first, I can be the first. But as Shipra also said, that it's important to be motivated. This motivation does not come from outside. It's important to be self-motivated, to keep on pushing yourself. You cannot, as Shalini was saying, if at the first nudge from your mother-in-law, you decide that I want to give up my career, then it will not take you anywhere. It's important to be persistent. It's important to say that I want to go on, because we do believe that at the end of the day, talent matters. So best of luck to everyone, all the students here, yeah, and all the men too, yeah. And thank you so much to all the panelists for joining us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you again. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.